Have that song go again?
Which one?
The one you were just humming.
That one?
Yeah.
What's that one called again?
What's it? That's a song about you.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. What's it called?
Isn't it like Pretty Woman?
The Winter Queen. Yeah, it's you. It's you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, are we rolling?
Yeah. We're rolling.
We're
Is that
rolling?
the corniest thing ever?
Alright. I guess we should start this episode, huh?
Yeah, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Deep song.
Spooky.
Drum.
Hello everyone, I'm Winter and this is...
Danny, that's me. I'm Danny.
And we are your podcast parents.
That's us.
Looking to take our relationship to the next level, but not becoming actual parents, but podcast parents. And this is our podcast baby.
This is our podcast baby.
Are our podcast babies.
That's all you listening right
That's
at
all
home.
you listen at home, on the couch, in the kitchen, doing dishes, vacuuming, doing laundry,
On the way to work.
on the way to work, walking your dog.
At work.
Give a little Spot a pet for me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Tell Spot hello. Hello
Yeah.
from podcast parents.
I miss Jack and Lucy. Those are
Yeah?
my bubbies,
I
yeah.
miss Toby.
Oh, Toby.
Yeah, Toby, you little
Aw.
squeaky puppy.
A little spoof.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Little fuckball.
Oh my god.
The first 2 minutes.
Wow, that didn't last very long, huh?
Well, that's... Well, I guess that's a reference. That was a misspeak.
Mispronunciation, Daniel.
That was a yeah. It
A
was
misspeak.
It was like a verbal typo.
Mm-hmm.
That,
Verbal typo. That's just anytime you talk.
yeah.
Yeah,
It
that's
was
just Danny words.
It was just I was trying to say fuzzball or a little fuzzy or whatever
Mm-hmm.
when we were talking one day about Toby,
Mm-hmm.
and I just kind of said little fuck. But I was trying to say fuzzball,
Mm-hmm.
so it became little fuckball.
Oh no. Alright, well this episode's going great so far.
Oh yeah? You
Yeah.
don't like it? You don't like it?
No, it's a good time. It's a good time.
Yeah?
So what are we talking about today, Danny? Give me a gist.
Well, I was thinking, judging on things we're both very passionate and interested about, things we're maybe culturally a part of us, that are like things that we really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking we could talk a little bit about horror.
The spooks.
The spooky.
They run through my veins.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're inked on my body.
Me too.
Yeah, look at us.
Look at us.
Fist touch.
Nerds.
Should we get that? Is there an ASMR version of the fist touch? Yeah.
Yeah, you got that?
Yeah, there's something on.
Oh, nice. You heard our knuckles collide there.
Yeah.
For all you ASMR folk out there.
A little bit of a flesh on flesh action.
All right, that's
Little bit.
a little much. Well,
I'm coming off too strong this episode.
dude, I think you got a little overly confident because we have one episode already up on our new YouTube channel.
That's right. The first episode of the podcast parents and this very episode you're listening to right now are up currently on our YouTube channel, the podcast parents on YouTube.
Yep.
Right? You'll recognize our logo when you look it up.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah, hit the little bell.
Hit the little ding.
Hit the bell.
You know what? Future Winter and Danny, can you give me a little ding?
Just hit the bell. Ding.
There we
Yeah,
go.
right there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right
perfect.
there. Perfect.
Put the ding where I said ding. Every single time I said ding. I'm gonna curse myself later for doing that.
Future Danny can do that part.
Yeah, there's gonna be. I'm not gonna splice this in. I'm gonna actually proactively say I'm not going to do this edit. But it would be funny if there was a live audio of me later, just going like screaming, having to put in all these little dings, and they're gonna stop right there.
Well, Dan.
Do you want to tell me your background in horror and your fascination with the medium and all the different ways it comes and maybe like
Well, Daniel,
origin story?
I'm so glad you asked.
Well, yeah.
My origin story in the realm of horror and whatnot actually spawns from early childhood.
Oh, yeah?
I was born and raised in a family of horror fanatics and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Even we've been labeled as the real life Addams family.
Is that so?
According to the New York Post.
The New York Post themselves.
Yeah, the real life Addams family of New Jersey.
Yeah, that's you.
It's a pretty fun title. But yeah.
Does that make you Wednesday?
Actually, me and Samara, my sister, have fought to the death over who gets to be Wednesday, and I'm currently recording this podcast, so I'll leave it at that. I get to be Wednesday.
Yeah, you get to. The font of this podcast is the Addams Family. We get to decide.
Yes, indeed.
But I guess we would be like the parents. We'd be like Morticia and Gomez.
Well, I've already called you my Gomez.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in this podcast space, we're the podcast parents.
Mm-hmm.
But in the real life Addams Family,
I'm Wednesday.
You're Wednesday.
Yeah, smart as Pugsley. Don't tell her I said that. Or she'd be cousin It.
Cousin It. I was thinking, I was like,
let's see if she listens to this and she'll. I'll get something thrown at me later.
A sock in the face, like just walking around, and just bam, just a slap.
Yeah, but yeah, I was raised pretty much surrounded by horror. My dad has a horror themed tattoo studio in Middlesex, New Jersey. And it is on Boundbrook Road. It is called House of 1,000 Tattoos. He's been tattooing. Yes, indeed. He came up with it. I think that was a fun little dad pun before he was even a dad. Yeah. But yeah, he's been tattooing for 20 plus years. And actually, the lobby of the tattoo studio is a antique store and like oddities collection store run by my mom, which is Katie Did's Collectibles and whatnot.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, both of them have Instagram pages if you want to check those out. You get a big virtual hug just from me. Yeah,
and from me.
Yeah, both of us.
The Etsy shop for those antiques is also really fun.
Yeah, definitely. So Google us, and all of the stuff will be there. And then, of course, there was, after the real life Addams Family, there was House of Shrek, which was featured on Amazon Prime. It was a reality-based TV show where we went on different adventures, like discovering haunted mysteries and stuff. Yeah. And it was mostly just about the fact that we're all into different collections and whatnot, and we were into like the spunky, macabre stuff, and we did things as a family, and we drive around in hearses. But yeah, so that was the center of that. And then also there was, in 2019, my dad broke the world record for the world's largest Ouija board in Salem, Massachusetts, the Salem Common, and it made it into Ripley's Believe It or Not as of 2019. So that's awesome. I would say, like, outside of not only like being surrounded by horror media from a young age, ever since my dad opened the tattoo studio, I think I was maybe 4 or 5 at the time. It's definitely progressed throughout my school career, and it's just been around, so it became a part of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I am a walking horror fanatic weirdo who likes tarantulas and zombie movies and likes spooky things, spooky art, astrology, witchcraft, all that stuff.
Yeah, the Spider Queen herself.
as Danny says, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's me. How about you, Dan? Tell me a little bit about
my origin story.
Your origin horror story.
Well, as a kid, I was actually not supposed to be watching any movies that were like scary. Anything PG-13 or above when I was like little. I guess until I started watching like Indiana Jones when I was like 8 or something. Like Star Wars, like when you get to the age where that starts to be interesting. Like when I was like a little kid. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that I saw a couple horror movies before I was even allowed to see like Star Wars. So I was like in kindergarten and I maybe saw a couple of like the Child's Play or like Nightmare on Elm Street kind of stuff on TV. There's definitely another one that I'm forgetting. I'm pretty sure it was like my first horror movie. I think we talked about it somewhat recently, but it's escaping me. but I definitely remember one of the first, like, maybe it was Psycho. Yeah, I saw Psycho when I was like 4.
Wow.
And obviously I didn't know what was happening. But one thing is that until I was like a grown man, like a grown ass adult, like I did not watch that movie again. Because when I was 4, the shower scene like is burned into my brain. Like I can picture perfect. From when I first saw it on TV when I was like a small child. I was in my parents' room and I turned around and I was like, what's this? Black and white movie. I just kind of sat down and watched it because I was a little dumb kid. And I think that's the moment I gained consciousness. In that moment, I was just like, I exist, you know? And that's like one of my, a tentpole memory for me was watching the shower scene from Psycho.
That's crazy.
On the floor of my parents' room on their TV and then freaking out. And for years and years, I would start to get paranoid in the shower sometimes. Just because like I saw that scene. And like even now sometimes I'll be in the shower just like looking, like if it's like a windy day, like there's like if it's the summer and I have the window cracked and the breeze is coming in and I see like the curtains moving in a certain way, all I can imagine is someone just like pressing a knife through the curtain and I would just kind of be trapped.
Spooky.
But that's like my formative horror experience from a young age. Then things like my mom had a lot of dolls growing up. So I was never really scared of dolls, but I was scared of Chucky.
Yeah.
And like on Halloween, like the Scream mask, like Ghostface would scare the shit out of me when I was like a really little kid.
Yeah.
I would like actually start to like really get scared, even though I didn't even really know what Scream was. I just had an idea, like I knew that mask was worn by like a guy who would kill people.
Yeah.
I don't know where. I guess I probably would have saw it on TV or saw like my uncle watching it or an older cousin or something and just not remembered seeing it. But seeing the mask would trigger that fear in me, even though it's just like a white face. But then as I started to get older, when I started to like explore more like spooky, extreme things that would like evoke a sense of emotion intentionally, as I started to get more interested in storytelling and stuff, I started to chase that horror. I wanted to see the extremes. I wanted to see like special effects and gore and like all this spooky shit, you know? And you know, I was very, very interested in that type of stuff from a young age too. Like even in the kids version, like Scooby-Doo. Like the original Scooby-Doo is kind of like horror for kids. It's very gothic and spooky and there's ghosts and there's intentional jump scares and stuff like that. I was super into Goosebumps. You know, all like the kid horror stuff, I went through all of it. So it made sense that at a certain age, I'd start watching like actual proper horror that was supposed to scare you, like, and get really into it. So I got really into a bunch of slashers, which I think every like young teenager gets into. They want to watch all the slashers. I got into the slashers when I was not a teenager yet. So I got into like before middle school. I had watched all the Friday the 13th and stuff like that. And Freddy Krueger was one. I think Nightmare on Elm Street is still like a genuinely scary, great horror movie. Because of just how like helpless it makes you feel. Because you're just like, oh, well, I have to sleep at some point. He's gonna get you.
Yeah.
But then those movies are also so fun.
It's like preying on your vulnerability. Oh, same thing with the shower scene. Like that's a very vulnerable moment. You don't really have anything to defend yourself.
Nah, you're entirely helpless, basically.
Yeah.
And like, you fight back, you struggle, you slip, you crack your head, you die anyway.
Yeah, so there's like true no way out.
Yeah, which I think is the kind of stuff that makes for the best horror.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It makes you feel exhausted. Like watching Nightmare on Elm Street makes you feel exhausted. Seeing her like start to fall asleep while in class and stuff, and you're familiar with that feeling if you've done like an all-nighter or something. Like once you become familiar with the feeling of staying awake, it's so exhausting seeing those characters go through that. That I feel like is what horror is about. It's about like evoking those like that sympathetic part of you.
Extreme empathy.
Yeah. Because you're like, oh shit. Like even if you don't like the characters, even if whatever is happening is like maybe really extreme, there's the part of you who's just like, damn. Like I would be terrified.
Yeah.
And it makes you like maybe reflect on those emotions that you have too.
And like what would you do in that situation, that kind of thing. And also to build off of what you're saying, our conversation in regards to like being caught in the shower or like being attacked while you're asleep. Growing up, my biggest fear, and even like to this day sometimes it freaks me out, it's the dark. You just can't see. Can't see.
Unknown.
So that there's unknown, and you don't see what's coming, like that kind of thing. I feel like it's like very straightforward, and it's almost like childlike, but at the same time, if you look deeper into it, like genuinely, that is a point of vulnerability. You're blind. So that's like even growing up next to the basement, because the basement was always the cliche kind of horror space in the house. Ever since my parents and we used to go to the movie theater every 4th of July, and we go see a new movie. It just became like a tradition, because at one point, like when you're outside in the backyard and it gets hot, and then also the mosquitoes start to come out, before we got into like the campfires time of the night, we'd go see a movie in like the nice air conditioning, and then we'd have something to talk about later. And one of them, I think it was the new Transformers movie at the time. I forget which one it was.
Which one?
With the little dude, the little robotic dude that's kind of perverted, but he's funny.
All of them.
All of them?
All of those.
All of them have it?
Perv, because all those movies are gross, pervy movies.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, I think the first one has a little dude, but
the
so
first
does
one?
The second one, maybe.
I feel like it might be Transformers 2 I'm thinking of.
Is it the one with the Devastator has balls?
I wouldn't remember that at that time. I was too young.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, we're at the testicles. And it's like, oh, it's funny because it's a robot and it has wrecking balls. Ha 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 ha. Thank you, Michael Bay. Giving a Transformer nuts.
Anyway, there was a trailer before that movie, whatever Transformers it was. And it was for The Conjuring.
Oh.
And the clap in the dark, to this day, if I was to hear that, I'd probably just keel over and die.
Really?
Like genuinely, that freaked me out, and that was like, you know, you had that moment where you realize that like you're alive at that young age. At that point in my life, which I was probably like 8 or 9 at the time, all of a sudden, like I felt the first moment of mortifying fear. And from then on, anytime I'm genuinely scared, I go possum. Like I play dead. It's like I can't move. So my sister and my mom and my dad, they found this out that I was freaking out about it. And sometimes one of them would clap around the house and the tears would start. Because immediately, it made me feel like I was in danger. It was it was such a strange trigger, but it was so effective.
I will say that scene is phenomenal. Like that The Conjuring made horror kind of great again. Like with the 90s and the aughts before the 2010s, horror kind of became really bad and cliche and like poppy. There was like few standouts. What's a couple examples that you think things got too cliche and poppy? Well, I can think of less classic great horror movies that came out in those 2 decades than in the decades since or before. Okay. So I would say Scream, like basically the first 2 Screams, but then the third one is the third Scream. It's like clowned on notoriously. I Know What You Did Last Summer, but then there's I Know What You Did Last Summer too. And then there's, you know, all the remakes of Texas Chainsaw and all the remakes of Friday the 13th, which that one's actually good. The remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, it's all like that same it was the era of recycling material. Yeah. And like Scream 4 was the only good one in that era later. But then like everything in between was just generic paranormal activity, like I don't know, it was strange. It was like a dead zone. Which is why when The Conjuring came out, horror kind of became popular again by like force. Because there's that scene, like, I mean, that clapping scene, like I've seen that as an adult and slept with the lights on. Like I've had that feeling. All due respect, I understand. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. Like, even though there's always great movies coming out, always, and there's always going to be great horror, even if you are just doing a blanket statement like I just did. Like we're going to talk later today about something we saw from that time period that I think is really good. But also, similarly, contemporaries of that movie are very criticized for going for a similar genre, but then not doing anything, being boring and that kind of stuff. Like The Woman in Black or something.
Yeah.
Or it's doing that gothic horror, but not well. You know? It's like we went through a period where like movies were in flux. Everything was trying to go... every movie from that time period feels like it's from that time period. Not all of them, of course. Some movies are timeless. I think they hold up really great because of that. But, and then some movies from that time period really, really benefit from looking and feeling like they're from that time period. There's such like a texture to it.
What's your stance on that? Which do you think holds more value, holds more weight?
Something being timeless or something being dated?
Yeah.
I think something being timeless will be more effective for longer. So if a movie came out in like the 60s and I can watch it today, not know what year it came out, and like have trouble finding out what year it came out, I feel like that's stronger.
I don't know. I feel like
if you watch The Shining, would you say like this feels like a 1980 movie? You would think that?
Purely based off of the well, now we have like much more high definition screens to watch it on versus the equipment at the time that was utilized. So regardless, and I mean even like the styles and stuff, it's obvious.
But The Shining could be in like 8K.
That's true.
Perfectly high resolution, like 8,000 pixels today. Like we can see it in that.
I mean, but
resolution.
even the language feels strange. It could be a timepiece.
But that is the thing. The Shining is meant to be a movie lost in time. It's like simultaneously in the 20s and all, like, you know what I mean? Or I guess with the same director, like 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Right.
That movie's from the 60s. It looks like it could be from like last year. Like.
I think I have more respect for a movie that is before its time than something that can be applicable to all eras.
Well, that's the thing. Movies that are before their time are usually the ones that are timeless.
I suppose you could see it that way.
Like 2001: A Space Odyssey, the reason it holds up so well because it was way ahead of its time. Same with The Shining.
Right.
Star Wars, even Star Wars is now feeling dated. But like those types of things.
Right.
They feel like they can take place, or they could have came out whenever, because they are so strong in what we're going for. They weren't leaning so heavily into the modern technology. Like I guess you could say Star Wars, the prequels. When those movies came out, they were doing all the CG, but all like the 90s, 2000s CG, which is not great. So now looking back at it, it goes, you know, this looks like a movie from the late 90s, early 2000s, because they lent too far into the limitations. When you lean into what you can do, like I guess the movie we're going to be talking about later today, you could have told me that movie came out in the 80s, the 90s. You could tell me that movie came out in 2010. They could, you know, I could believe any of it. I guess the fact that there is an A-list actor in it who I know how she looks like now versus then would be the giveaway, I guess. But it is shot on film. It is not doing anything so timely to that era that it stands out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if something comes out, I mean, it's not always an issue.
Besides what's going on in the actual era itself that it's supposed to take place in.
Well, yeah, it's a period piece.
Right, so if you're referencing like when it was filmed, when it was made, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, not the actual content.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
then I misunderstood. I understand that.
And I don't think it's a bad thing. Like something could be of an era. Like I mean, Scream. I was just talking about how I like Scream. The Scream movies are inherently of the era. They're about the modern day. Right? So in the 90s, it was about 90s horror. When it came out in 2009, Scream 4, it was about 2009 horror, that kind of thing. And Scream 5, I love Scream 5. Scream 5 is about 2022. It is about living today and having to deal with what movies are like today. In 10 years, they're going to be like, wow, they really were talking about 2020 horror, huh? Kind of the same way we look back at Scream 4 and we go, man, this was really ahead of its time. They were saying this about 2009. Imagine what they'd be saying today, Scream 5. So I guess that's a perfect example. But something that is timeless will also, like a movie I was thinking about recently, which is not horror at all, but I was thinking about V for Vendetta. Do you know about that movie?
I know of it. I haven't seen it yet.
It's a movie based on a comic book from the 80s. And it's about fascism and anarchy and it's a dystopian future and all this kind of stuff. It's a very fascinating book. And I like the movie a lot. The movie came out right after the Matrix movies. And there's elements of it that feel really like they were going for, like, this is right after the Matrix. But for the most part, the movie actually kind of feels timeless. Because there's like maybe one scene or two scenes that really feel like from that time because of the technology. But everything else is shot in such a way, and the world is created in such a way that it could take place whenever. Because it's supposed to be a near future. So the fact that it's indistinct in that, and the way it's shot in film, so we don't have the look of like early 2000s digital, that kind of thing, that it, things like that stand the test of time a little bit more. How do we get into this discussion? This is supposed to be a horror movie episode.
Yeah,
that's what podcasts are about.
It was pretty spot on. We've been keeping it horror stuff, yeah.
But yeah, I think horror is another one of those that...
Oh, we're talking about origin stories. That's all.
Yeah. But I think horror is another one of those that, like, the era that a piece of horror can come out in can really define it, as well as limit it. Like, if you think of 80s horror, all the slashers with all the special effects, there's like a heyday in it where it's like, this is awesome. Like, The Thing is phenomenal. One of the greatest horror movies. And the special effects are beautiful. Nightmare on Elm Street is a classic, but that's one of those where, because it was in that era of 80s horror, everything got way too big and way too silly and kept going for way too long, to the point where, it got franchised to death. Friday the 13th movies are schlocky and cheap, and they're fun. They never really, like, got great, but because they were from that popular era, they feel really 80s. You know what I mean? But that's
campy.
Yeah. But then they lean into the camp.
Yeah.
And that's when they start to get good.
It becomes their, like, superpower at that point.
Yeah. And then that's the thing. That's the charm of it.
Yeah.
That's the charm of, like,
they
that
own
era.
It. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is something I think is also a strong point to horror. Horror is about extremes. Horror is comedy.
Why do you say that?
Because when you think of it, comedy is set up punchline. It's building tension and releasing tension and controlling that in the audience to get a reaction. What is horror? Building tension, releasing tension in order to get a reaction out of the audience. Which is why some of the hardest, but also some of the natural combinations in genres are horror and comedy. Because if you think about it, they feel like opposites.
Yeah.
Horror is supposed to be something that sticks with you. Something that makes you shiver and want to retreat and haunt. Comedy is something that's supposed to be a release. It's supposed to be something that make you laugh, make you happy, make you smile, maybe make you forget about the things that are haunting you.
They both affect you in some way and leave you with something.
But most of the best horror movies are also kind of funny. Right? I mean, not all of them, of course. Some horror movies fill you with dread and, like, leave you hanging with that for a while afterwards. And there's a lot of great ones we can talk about that I know you're probably thinking about that have that. That really, like, leave you with this feeling of, like, wow, like, this is upsetting. And I'm now going to have to be thinking about this for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, Ghostbusters, Scream, Evil Dead, which is like a franchise that has, like, forever impacted me. Tons of things. I mean, horror characters lend themselves to comedic situations. Friday the 13th. Those movies end up being funny. Nightmare on Elm Street movies are kind of always funny.
I mean, especially in all the different ways that he chooses to kill and prey on his victims.
Yeah.
They can be comical.
Because they're supposed to be creative. And at a certain point, you're getting joy and excitement out of the creativity.
Out of like what's coming next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't really care what happens to the characters. You want to see how funnily and creatively they can die.
Yeah.
There's like a version of
as
that.
morbid as it is. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's fun. That's what slashers are about.
Mm-hmm.
Slashers are almost not about being scared anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, think about when you watch a slasher. The most exciting stuff sometimes is like going, oh, when someone dies.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much like looking away and going, like getting like upset that they died. Like we saw X recently.
Yeah, we did.
Some of the most fun in that movie is seeing the kills.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. Especially because, spoiler alert, it's the old lady who is the murderer.
Yeah, it's really creative and well done in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like unexpected. There's Speaking of wow.
Somebody wanted to slam that door.
Oh yeah, they did. Wow.
But yeah. You were talking about the old lady.
It's the old lady.
Yeah, the old lady. She's over there. She's just slamming the door. She's like, I'm gonna go in there and put a rake in their eyes.
That's a good way to go.
But I will say, the one thing I think that holds X back from being really, really great is the fact that the kills are not that creative.
That's a good
for
point.
a slasher.
Yeah.
That's my one thing.
I
enjoy it. It was a very enjoyable time. I loved the 70s of it. I loved the tone. I loved everything about like what the movie was going for. It was trying to be kind of corny. It was
also
funny.
trying to be artsy too. Like I felt like it kept getting in its own way.
I felt like it was trying to be too edgy.
That's what I mean. Yeah, like it was taking itself too seriously, and I feel like because I had looked over at some other people in the theater, and a lot of people were on their phones at one point.
Really?
Yeah. So I feel like if they really like honed in, like Friday the 13th, they embraced that campiness of it, and that's when it became good. That's when the value went up.
Yeah.
If they embraced those kind of creative deaths, I feel like there could have been much more attachment to the characters and much more of a reaction and engagement levels.
Yeah.
But because it felt so separate, like those are actors on the screen and I'm sitting in a chair watching the movie, it was hard to connect and it was hard to really involve yourself in the story.
I think that bit you're getting at about it taking itself seriously is the movie dedicating. And this is a really weird criticism. Because I actually did like this element. They dedicated a lot of time to making us know the characters.
Right.
Which is not something a slasher usually does. Especially a slasher like this, which is so Texas Chainsaw inspired. Like we got to know their like what the characters were thinking and feeling and how they felt about certain situations that didn't necessarily impact the horror elements of it. But maybe they were disturbing in a way, or maybe...
You know, that's very A24, now that I think about it.
But
yeah, that seems to be like a pattern in their work.
But I will say, unlike an A24 movie, it seemed to have a lot of fun with itself.
It did.
Which I think the best movies from A24 do. Like The Lighthouse. The Lighthouse is great. Because it has a
Everything
lot of
Everywhere All at Once.
It's phenomenal.
And
all the movies those directors have done.
Hereditary, The Vivitch. Yeah. All those things.
Well, the thing with Hereditary and The Vivitch is that was the movies I was hinting at before. Yeah. Those movies have like so little release. They let you...
a lot of tension build.
They let you wallow.
I disagree. I have to disagree. Yeah.
Hereditary is maybe Midsommar a little bit more. Because Midsommar is actually less scary.
I actually haven't seen that one.
Midsommar is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But Hereditary is not funny. Unless you're watching it the second time.
Well, recognize the difference in the context as well. Like the content is severely different in like severity and how drastic it is and how far they're willing to go as well. I feel like that would fall more into like a genre of shocking horror and like the kind that haunts you and like leaves a mark on you as well. And like not to mention the Hereditary, I just mixed the two. The Vivitch and Hereditary end in a very similar way.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, they do.
Like they both reach, spoilers alert, they both reach their own version of nirvana.
Yeah, in ways
like in
that
the gist
are
of it.
disturbing.
In ways that one may say are disturbing.
that are meant to be kind of disturbing. Not the characters, but like the actions they're doing, I guess.
Well, the actions they've done leading up to that point to bring them to that nirvana.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, could you say that's a very similar situation to Joker as well?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Joker's another one of those where there's a lot of disturbing things. Like that movie also, I would say, falls into like horror, comedy, drama.
Oh, yeah,
thriller.
and psychological as well. Definitely.
Like we're brought along by this unreliable narrator through his disturbing acts, but we're seeing it through his point of view, so we're almost sympathetic to him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's similar to like something like the Levitch or like Hereditary, except unlike, I think Hereditary of these is the one where I'd say that movie like takes my mood away during the day if I see that.
Well, I mean, it's really... Hereditary isn't a movie. I would call it more an experience.
It's one of those where it's like, I don't know.
It's like it's more than that.
It's disturbing.
It's not something that you like. It's not made to be your comfort movie. It's not something that you can really watch more than once. It's more like you went and witnessed like something super shocking and you feel all these emotions at once, and now I need to go show everybody else. Now I need to go invite like all my friends over and we need to watch it together.
Yeah.
So I can re-experience those emotions with
Through
them.
them, yeah.
And it's all about that connection too. And I feel like that's what X really lacked. Besides the moments where we figured out that it was the old lady and watching her kill like maybe the first 2 people, that was it. But everything else, it was just like her kills were so simple.
Yeah.
There wasn't really much thought behind it. There wasn't much symbolism behind it. She just wanted to kill them all and that was it.
I just think if X was exactly the same, but the kills were cooler,
Yeah.
I would have dug it more.
Just like up the kills, just a little bit.
Literally, yeah.
Just like have fun with it.
Like if like one of the take out one of the shots.
I mean, besides
Too many
like,
characters are killed with a gun in a movie that's a slasher.
Agreed. Definitely.
I think a gun in a slasher should be used very sparingly.
A knife isn't as personal as a gun isn't as personal as a knife.
And I think even a knife is boring.
Well, a knife can be overused unless you get creative with it.
Exactly. I think that like after a couple knife stabs, you get it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think the new Scream did a good job at that too. Like the whole shtick is that he's stabbing them with a knife. But they did some gruesome knife stuff in Scream 5. But Hereditary, I guess I keep wanting to go back to Hereditary.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that we talked about earlier, that effective horror preys on emotions that we can kind of relate to.
Right.
And so much of Hereditary is about family.
Yeah, and that gets personal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No one has more baggage than they do when it comes to like their family life. Like everybody in some way, no matter how great your family life is, you can relate to the awkward, dreadful feeling of like a weird, awkward dinner.
Getting in trouble with your parents and having to eat dinner afterwards.
Even
awaiting the punishment, awaiting the grounding. Yeah.
So feeling those scenes, or maybe even your parents being disappointed in you in a certain way or whatever.
Feeling that dread, that guilt. Yeah.
Hereditary takes that and forces it down you. It's just like, not only are they disappointed in you, but in this, like you're watching a case where it's like, is she right? Is he like a mess? Like, is this kid the problem? Like, and then is she also the same problem for her? Like, but then she's the way she, like, there's so much layered in that. It's called Hereditary for a reason.
Right.
Like it's so rich in like preying on those vulnerable emotions about family that everybody can relate to in some way.
It's such a spiderweb conflict as well. There's so many things attached to other things, and then you have these morals that you're trying to implicate and connect with certain characters. But then at the same time, it's like, well, if you take it from this perspective, they're correct. But if you take it from this perspective, they're also correct. But this person would also be correct if you take it from that perspective.
But then they're all wrong. Too.
But then they're all wrong at the end of the day. And it's like, well, define wrong, not right. So what's right? So it's also like so much gray area too.
Yeah. And everyone is responsible for like horrific actions in the movie. And the ones who aren't pay for it. Like, but they don't pay for anything they've done. They
Right.
just have to suffer because of these other people.
They're suffering other people's consequences. Yeah.
Like, think about, I guess, the dad in that movie.
The poor dad, yeah.
He just kind of is there. He's trying to stay strong. He is in a shitty situation.
Yeah.
And he just dies. He just
In one of the most brutal ways possible and slow.
slowly, violently, and then we have to watch it in like a shocking scene.
And watch his wife watch it too. Yeah.
And we're watching it through her. Like she is so petrified in fear that is becoming like an iconic image of horror. Like her face is almost scary to look at.
Yeah. But those facial expressions though, I actually, back when I was in AP theater class in senior year of high school, when I was directing a set, I forget, a set, it's not a set, when I was directing a short play, the way that I would encourage my actors is I would send them links to certain movie clips of like favorite horror movies, such as Hereditary, and I'd tell them to practice it in the mirror and to try and encapsulate. I want to feel every inch of emotion that's in your heart and in your brain. I want to see it on your face on stage. I want to see it from the back of the room.
Yeah.
So I feel like that is such a powerful tool, not only in cinema, but in theater as well, because it's all about being in the moment.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, with movies, it's almost the opposite. You don't want to see the expression from the back of the room. You want to see their expression because their whole face is going to take up the screen.
Right.
It has to be subtle. If it's too much, that's how you get into soap opera acting.
Yeah.
But with horror, you can get away with it. You can get insanely theatrical because you're pushing characters to their extremes. So when something like Hereditary takes still moments, but the characters have the expressions that you can read from across the street, it feels so much more gut-wrenching.
And also because the frame is so up close and it's for long moments of time, it almost becomes uncomfortable. Very similar to, spoiler of the Batman.
Well, it becomes uncomfortable.
Yeah, the Riddler's like panic attack moment. Yeah. Where he like elongates his vowels. He's like, oh, I had it all figured out.
Because he's also like screaming and he's having like he's clearly on the spectrum. Yeah. He's having like a meltdown. So it's uncomfortable to watch him have this meltdown.
And he's just chilling. Batman's just watching him do it.
Batman's antagonizing him. Batman's just like, you're a fucking loser. You're going to die here in this prison. No one's going to remember you. He's like saying that. He's like literally saying those words.
The Riddler, he caused such destruction.
And there's no sympathy granted to him from Batman in that scene too. The audience almost feels sympathy for him because we see where he comes from. Yeah. We see like, and also it's hinted that Batman also has sympathy for him because he thinks his cause is probably correct. Like there's some lines in the script where it's like, oh, you think he's justified. And then that deleted scene with the Joker, when he takes the evidence of the serial killings to the Joker, and he's like, can you tell me why these killings are happening? Like, as a similar case. He basically like, I guess to reference another horror movie, because the Batman is also referencing horror movies in its text.
Oh, that's what makes me love one of the Batman as one of my new favorite Batman movies altogether. Yeah. Like, just based off of Dark Knight, I thought Batman was genuinely just like a millionaire with fancy toys and stuff. And not knowing any of previous knowledge based off the comics and anything, I was kind of a noob to it, especially the DC universe, because I've been so like dedicated to Marvel. Yeah. I was like born and raised thinking Marvel because Spider-Man.
Yeah. Because Spider-Man's
of course. Awesome. Yeah. my Toby.
Yeah, Toby.
The OG, yeah. Best Spider-Man, hands down. Tom Holland fans, don't come for me, please.
No, because you're 100% right. If anyone listen, you think Tom Holland's better than Tobey Maguire, you have a little bit of growing up to do. Okay.
Oh, he said it.
you listen. I get it. You're only 12, but like you got.
Hey, be nice.
You're younger than the Tobey Maguire movies.
Oh no!
Oh my god!
Oh my god! Stop.
I remember them coming out.
Am I younger?
No, you're not.
No, I'm not, right?
You're younger than one of them.
Does that make you feel old?
Yeah, it does a little bit.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Huh. But yeah, there's like an element of The Batman.
The Batman.
new one.
Mm-hmm.
It is one stub toe away from an R rating.
Mm-hmm.
And that so much of that is because of the horror influence from like movies like Seven,
Mm-hmm.
which is like almost like a horror noir. It's about a serial killer. It's a thriller. Silence of the Lambs
Mm-hmm.
is a psychological horror. It's one of the greatest of all time. It won Best Picture,
Mm-hmm.
I think, or it won many Oscars
Yeah.
when it came out. And that scene with the Joker is just Silence of the Lambs. The Joker is almost treated as like a horror monster.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see his face until the end, and when we do, it's through close-ups that are grotesque, almost body horror-like.
Yeah.
He's like this. He clearly has these acid burns, and he's all messed up looking.
Mm-hmm.
And in that scene, he even says, he's like, "Oh, you think he's right?"
Mm-hmm.
Because we're supposed to realize that Batman is starting to identify with Riddler because they have similar backgrounds. Except the difference is the movie forces us to realize that Batman is unhinged in that.
Mm-hmm.
He is someone who was raised like very privileged, even though he had a very traumatic upbringing. And like he's forced to see that in these other characters.
Mm-hmm.
He's forced to see that in Riddler, who is someone who was also an orphan, who faced a different path in life, even though maybe they had a similar branching off point.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're both within the Wayne Foundation, but one of them had a bunch of money and the other one was abandoned in an orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "You weren't a real orphan. I was a real orphan where the fucking babies wouldn't survive the winter."
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other hand, we have another orphan who had to grow up on the streets, and she had to get street smart and almost chose a more similar path to Batman because of maybe her more strong sense of self, because she had to grow up and find out who she is without a support system in Catwoman.
Right.
So we have these three characters in this movie that are diametrically opposed, but they all are kind of the same.
Mm-hmm.
And we're witnessing all these three characters kind of like through Batman. He's seeing the other versions of himself, like they're foils for him.
Mm-hmm.
All that to say that there's a bunch of really good horror scenes in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Batman, for the first half of the movie, is treated as though he is a literal monster. He is like inhuman. He is like a demon. Comes out of the shadows. We hear him before we see him.
He's genuinely scary.
Yeah, he is insanely scary.
Mm-hmm.
When he beats those guys up, it like makes you shake in your seat a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And like even after his introduction scene, the first time we see Batman, the first time we see him physically, he is violently like breaking apart a gang of people
Mm-hmm.
to the point where like the guy who he's trying to save is terrified of him.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're supposed to see him as like a horror movie monster, where his voice is booming and deep.
Mm-hmm.
His footsteps are loud and they echo. We see his feet walking into a room before we see his face.
Mm-hmm.
Like his eyes are always entrenched in darkness. Like there's so much horror visual language in that movie.
Which also, building off of your point from the down top pan, like seeing the feet before the face,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that almost demands authority. That demands respect.
Mm-hmm.
And it totally, like, I just had an aha moment because I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
Like, I officially realized, like, wow, they were really setting him up to appear as powerful as possible.
Exactly.
As like this super individual.
And the first time we see him in a room full of cops too,
Mm-hmm.
we can tell how intelligent he is and how much presence he has
Mm-hmm.
with no words. He doesn't say anything. He walks in, he's bigger than everybody.
Mm-hmm.
His footsteps are louder, his boots are big. We get big close-ups, his feet fill the screen.
Mm-hmm.
But his feet also, he slowly hovers around the room, almost like a ninja or like a phantom. He
Mm-hmm.
just moves his cloak, he's flowing like water.
Mm-hmm.
But his footsteps boom at the same time as he goes to different pieces of evidence, just to let the cops know that he's ahead of
Like
them.
who's really in charge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how he has such a physical presence, as if he is like literally a demon almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like he appears at that. He's like in leather, like
Mhm.
that's all sewn together on his face. He doesn't look appealing.
Mm-mm.
And I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
Like he isn't as, and that's the thing that has always been there in Batman as a character. Like Batman was birthed through horror, like impressionistic horror, like Nosferatu.
Mm-hmm.
He is a bat. He's supposed to look scary. His whole shtick is fear. He is inspiring fear in order to elicit justice, I guess. Like his end.
Justice.
Yeah. Vengeance. Yeah. Like he is preying on negative emotions.
Mm-hmm.
He lives in the shadows. Like there's these things where it's like there's this character who we all identify as like this. You know, he's one of the most popular superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. That's it. That's the three.
Oh my god, they were roommates.
Oh, you can hear what they're saying?
No. I'm just referencing a Vine.
Oh, yeah.
For all you millennials out there listening. Remember Vine? Vine was fun.
Does anyone remember Vine? Do you remember Vine?
How about this? Do you remember Musical.ly?
No.
No? You don't remember Musical.ly?
No,
You
I
weren't
remember
hip with
Vine.
it, Daniel?
No.
No?
I was too old for Musical.ly.
You weren't lip syncing to Closer by the Chainsmokers on Musical.ly?
No. I
man.
knew of Musical.ly,
Mm-hmm.
but by the time I found out what Musical.ly was, it had changed names to TikTok.
Oh, okay.
Because it was the same thing. And then it took me 2 years to realize what TikTok was.
Yeah, that got really big when I was in middle school. And
What?
like all the cool kids had Musical.ly and they were getting a bunch of hits and likes on their stuff. And then
Vine was still around then.
Vine was still around.
With Musical.ly at the same time?
There was a moment in time where they like overlapped because I remember having both of them downloaded on my Kindle because I wasn't allowed to have a phone yet.
Really?
Really. And then as soon as I got into high school, which is freshman year, which was 2018, then that's when TikTok, I think, emerged from the darkness. Because people were still talking a little bit about Vine, but then Vine was dead.
TikTok was like 2019.
Was it?
That's when I heard about it. And I spent months asking around, what is TikTok?
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew it was Musical.ly.
Mm-hmm.
I know Musical.ly changed names to TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but the thing is, every time I would see a TikTok, it wouldn't be lip syncing. So I would be like, why aren't they lip syncing? What is the difference now? I don't get it. Is it fine? And people would be like, no, it's not really like 6 seconds. It's kind of whatever. And I would be like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. What do you mean it's whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Now I kind of get it.
Yeah.
But it took a bit. It took a while before I could understand what it was.
Danny, TikTok's coming soon.
No, there aren't. They're not.
No?
No.
Aw. Guys, blow up our DMs asking Danny to make TikToks.
I won't make. I actually don't. I have my principle of not downloading that app on my phone.
We're gonna change that. Listeners, we're gonna change that. We're gonna change his
Not on
mind.
my phone. We'll have it on your phone.
What? Hell no. I don't have storage space for that. You think I do? My Android? No.
It looks like we've crossed an impasse then. I guess no one's downloading TikTok.
Oh no.
What's gonna happen?
They're gonna lose a stat. That's what's gonna happen. We were talking about horror movies before, weren't we?
Yeah, we're talking about Batman.
Oh, Batman.
But yeah, I don't know. Batman's always been layered deeply with horror. Every iteration of Batman has done it to different degrees, successful and otherwise. Like I think the Nolan movies don't really do much great scary stuff. The scary stuff in the Nolan movies comes from the crime, from seeing like, oh, the Joker is kind of scary because he's a crazy person, or Scarecrow in the first movie. He's scary because he makes you see monsters, but there's nothing scary in them, I would say. Like nothing really horror text. Because those are crime movies. The Burton movies, I guess, have horror in the fact that they're gross. Like,
Right.
The first Batman 89, I wouldn't say it has too much horror elements outside of like the given gothic stuff. But because it's Burton. And like the extremities, like this like massive super city with these gothic structures and stuff like that. But I wouldn't call it scary, more cartoonish, more animated.
Right.
Whereas Returns with Catwoman and Penguin is more, I would say, horror-based, because those characters are much more horror-based. Like Catwoman is like undead and she's creepy and she moves like a doll and she's really cool and stuff like that. Her suit is like latex and stitched together, which is inherently like uncomfortable. So like, and then Danny DeVito plays like this gross mutant penguin who like bites people's noses off and stuff. It's crazy. I love that movie. It's wild and nuts.
It's fun.
And then we got cartoon Batman.
Yeah.
We got like Batman Forever and we got Batman and Robin, which were like essentially live action cartoons.
When was the Jim Carrey Riddler?
Batman Forever.
Batman Forever?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the few Batmans I do remember watching growing up.
Yeah.
Particularly because I watched The Cable Guy. And my mom was like, oh, you like Jim Carrey? You should watch Batman Forever.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah? So I did. I actually liked him in that.
Yeah.
I thought he was super fun.
He's great in that.
Mhm.
I actually kind of like Batman Forever. I haven't seen it in a long time.
It's been a
meaning
little bit for me
rewatch
too.
But I know Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, Joel Schumacher was trying to go to make the 60s Batman
Mm-hmm.
in the modern Batman. He was going for insanely theatrical, over the top, really gay, really like explicitly gay.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's a gay filmmaker, he's inserting some of those things in the fact that like we're idolizing these male figures who are built like Greek gods.
Mm-hmm.
So like he made the costume more like Greek sculpture, like gave them nipples and cod pieces.
Love it.
And there was this whole like gay fright with Batman and Robin back in the 60s where it's like, oh, a man and a boy sleeping in the same house?
Could you?
Oh my God.
Let alone the same room.
Exactly.
The audacity.
So because of that, it feels like Joel Schumacher was biting back at that by being like,
Hell yeah.
yeah, and you know what? Robin's a man now.
Oh.
So who knows what they're doing down in the Batcave?
Oh my God. That's so good.
The ladies like the bike.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Superman works alone. That's just the best movie ever made.
That's so good.
Nice to meet you. You know? What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. Nothing. But I guess we only really got horror back into Batman in a big way in Batman vs. Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Because that Batman is like kind of scary. And he's shot to be like a monster. That was the first time I think Batman was really filmed cinematically to be a monstrous presence.
Besides the Batman.
Well,
that was previous.
The Batman is the latest version.
Right, that's what I mean.
But just before the Batman, we got Batman vs. Superman, where Batman is the villain of that movie for a lot of it. Which is like, you know, I have my take on that. We'll be here forever if we talk about it.
Oh boy, that sounds like a Batman vs. Superman themed episode.
Oh yeah? We'll see.
I think we'll have to revisit that another episode.
We'll see.
Yeah,
but
certainly.
I think we've gone on pretty long.
Pretty long, yeah.
In this theme. I think we should maybe move on to our next segment.
Yeah.
Our next segment is something that goes
I'm sorry, what are you trying to say?
I'm trying to say the name of our next segment.
Our next segment.
Just
suggestion?
Just suggestion?
Okay, take off the cha-cha-cha at the end. This isn't happy birthday.
But yeah, this is our next segment where we just suggest stuff. It's just suggestions. We're just suggesting. We're just suggestion.
Danny Dan, you want to start off?
I would like to start off, but would you like to start off before I start off?
No,
What's
I think
your
you should start off
suggestion,
first.
Winter?
Nah, I think you should start off first.
You think I should start off first?
I think so. No, I'm feeling kind of generous today. I think I want to hear yours first.
Well, I guess I'll use my just suggestion to rave a little bit about one of my favorite pieces of horror media. This is something we actually watched together, but it's something I've seen famously many times in a row.
Oh yeah?
Uh-huh.
What's that?
It would be the Evil Dead franchise.
Oh man, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I figured this would be the perfect kind of medium to talk about it because it is an alternative almost form of horror.
Right.
Something that is like inherently funny and campy and leaning into that, and is one of the most popular versions of a movie doing that. We obviously have movies like Shaun of the Dead or What We Do in the Shadows, which are great pieces of horror comedy, and I love those movies, and I rewatch them almost every year or 2 years. But nothing for me beats the Evil Dead franchise. And we've seen, you've seen the first 3 films.
I have. We watched them together.
Yeah. And I was trying to get at, we saw those together. But there's more.
There's more?
There's more. There is a 2013 film that was supposed to be, it was marketed as a remake of Evil Dead. And for the most part, it is the events of the first Evil Dead movie, but as if they were played completely straight. Which, in all fairness, the first Evil Dead movie isn't funny on purpose.
Yeah.
It's campy, but when they were making the movie, they were setting out to make something that was a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
But Sam Raimi inherently has these theatrical Three Stooges like influences, and there were some of that creeps into it, and obviously some parts that are not great because it's such a low budget indie movie made by like 20-year-olds in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
There are limitations that have since become funny to us as fans. All that to say, the 2013 movie is taking that original film and playing it in its extreme seriousness, which in a way is campy. You know what I mean? There's like a meta-ness to it, where it's like, we are making this so serious, it's extreme, and it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So we're seeing like these demonic possessions in like what 2013's interpretation of demonic possession looks like. And we're seeing gore with modern effects and modern, you know, kind of like standards of like grossness and stuff. We're seeing the extreme grossness from a new modern lens that is much more self-serious, until it gets to a point where it also enters that camp that we love about the franchise, while also still taking itself seriously.
Right.
So it's like this almost Ouroboros snake eating its own tail of like, we're not going to do a funny movie. We're not going to do a campy movie. But by doing that, we are being like campy. The meta text of this movie is that this movie is still going to be campy and fun, but it is going to be campy and fun because we're not doing it on purpose.
Right.
But we are doing it on purpose. Because we're setting out to make a movie that is fun like Evil Dead by making it serious. It's this weird, again, it's like a snake eating its own tail. It's a really, really fun and effective horror movie. It has some really disturbing demonic stuff, and it has some really, really cool like Evil Dead shit that I think is awesome. Really bloody, really violent, like gross and awesome, and just a good time. Like, I think a lot of people, when it first came out, took it too seriously.
Yeah.
Which is kind of it's kind of the fault of like the era it came out in.
Right.
It came out in a time where everything was being remade as this serious version. And because it was leaning into the seriousness of it, people at the time just kind of saw it as shallow. But in the years since, people have come around on the movie a lot. It actually had its 9th anniversary a couple weeks ago, and they were tweeting about it. This whole the original ending of the movie was actually supposed to be the same as the original ending of Evil Dead. It was filmed and everything, but they changed it, and they released that for the first time like a couple weeks ago. Just a video of it on Twitter. The director was like, "By the way, here's the original take of the ending."
Oh wow. Yeah,
and it's the same thing. Except replace Bruce Campbell with like Bruce Campbell's Ash with Mia from the new one. Same thing. The POV shot rushing towards her on the bike until it hits her in the face and she's screaming and stuff, just like the end of the first Evil Dead. Almost as to go to show like, hey guys, like this is a silly movie.
Yeah.
Right? We're still doing Evil Dead here. But at the time, yeah, a lot of people had problems with it because like, yeah, they took the fun out of Evil Dead. So why am I supposed to enjoy it if it's not fun anymore? Man, there are people people just like to be loud when we're recording. Don't they know that we're doing a podcast specifically?
Yeah, obviously.
Don't these people that are just walking around in the halls just know, pipe down because specifically the podcast parents are recording?
The podcast parents are recording.
The podcast parents are recording.
I sent them to their rooms. They're moving about.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. They're just still
What's that
talking
about?
blatantly, like really loudly. As if they have no idea we're recording.
As if they have nothing better to do.
Exactly. At this time of night.
It's
On a
Tuesday night.
It's Tuesday night.
Tuesday night. You got school tomorrow. Come on, go to bed. Oh, speaking of reminders, Daniel, I think it's time for our hydration reminder.
Yeah, everybody drink some water.
Drink some water. What'd you do? You know what? It's not water, but it's flavored water. So I'm going to drink with you guys.
Winter right now is grabbing something that's flavored water. She's opening up the bottle right now. Oh, there's a little fizz. I bet you heard a little fizz as it was far away in the room. She's taking a sip right now. Oh, you should stay hydrated, guys. I think it would be a really, really good time for you to just take a nice big mouthful, a nice big wet gulp, fill that mouthful of water.
Yeah, the adjectives.
Suck that water down. Yeah. And then that way you can have more energy for later to listen to the rest of the podcast. Have more energy for your commute home from work. Have more energy while you mow that lawn. Have more energy while you do that puzzle.
Do that puzzle.
Go for a run.
Yeah.
Be hydrated.
Or a speed walk.
Exactly.
I'd do a speed walk.
Speed walks are great, especially when the weather's nice.
Oh, yeah.
So great.
100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, Danny, any other things you want to add on for your just suggestion?
My just suggestion, I guess, is the 2013 Evil Dead remake. And that's it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Cool. I guess we'll have to be watching that next then.
Yeah, maybe.
Tacking it onto our list. But speaking of which, my just suggestion just so happens to be already checked off our list.
Oh, yeah?
Because we watched it a couple hours ago.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, is your just suggestion gonna lead us into our next segment?
I think it's gonna transition us into our next segment.
And our next segment is the one where we review movies that we saw together.
Yeah,
we have a little bit of movies where we saw. Are we gonna have a letterboxing match?
I think it's time for a letterboxing match.
Ring the bell.
So,
this is the segment, Letterboxing Match, where we match up on a movie that we saw together and we review it, and you can see our thoughts on Letterboxd as well.
Indeed, indeed, indeed.
Letterboxd, which is also the thing that crops a movie to give it its little aspect ratio. If you're a nerd, if you want to Letterboxd.
It's also an app in which we both review movies that we see together, that we see solo, TV shows, and whatnot. So check us out on there as well. I believe my name is When Terrible Shrek on Letterboxd, and Danny is...
I'm just Danny Regino on there. But I think DannyBoy978 is my username, technically. So I think if you look that up, you'll find me too.
978? Why are those numbers?
I don't know.
Just for fun?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I've always had those numbers ever since I was like 9. Like Club Penguin days.
Oh my god, Club Penguin and Pop Tropica?
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
Wii World.
We know how to roll.
Yeah.
We know what's up.
Let's just say we've been around the block on that.
Yeah, we were so popular in middle school.
Let's just say we're the coolest kids.
Definitely not camping out in the computer lab during recess.
No, what makes you say that?
Aww. But yeah, so this letterboxing match is going to be The Others with Nicole Kidman.
Oh, starring Nicole Kidman, the 2001 film?
2001 film starring Nicole Kidman with Tom Cruise as a producer.
It is directed by Alejandro Amenabar.
Indeed. Love that man.
Yeah?
But yes, indeed.
Tell me a little bit more about your experience with this movie, Winter.
Oh, well, my experience with this movie goes a little ways back. Back when I was experimenting in horror movies for the first time. My first official movie that falls into the horror genre, Gesundheit, falls into the horror genre, was The Gate from, I think, the late 80s, early 90s. And I believe, if I remember correctly, because I haven't watched it since I was like 7 or 8, that was the first time that I was like able to officially start watching horror movies and like paying attention to the story. But in general, they've always been on in the background at my house or at the tattoo shop or whatever. So The Gate, the portal to hell opens in this kid's backyard after his dog dies. I think that's how the story goes. But it's like super, I guess you could say campy in the effects because it's the 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
So
those are awesome effects.
Oh yeah, they're definitely like Halloween-y effects. Like I could see a lot of the demons in that movie being Halloween decorations, which I think is super fun. That's another movie we have to see. But The Others kind of falls into a similar category where I started experimenting. It was actually a recommendation from my mom, Katana Shrek, on Instagram. Katie Dids Collectibles, also on Instagram, at Ass with 1,000 Tattoos, Boundbrook Road in Middlesex, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she had recommended it to me because she loves Nicole Kidman and she loved the story as well. And I was like, what's it about? She's like, I can't tell you, I can only show you. So overall, that experience watching it, I think I was under 10 at the time, probably middle school age. It was just like the first time I've ever been like mind boggled by a movie. Like it gave me whiplash with that plot twist. And I've seen a lot more movies now, and I've had a lot more severe whiplashes now. But for the moment that I saw it, for the era that I saw it in, it just made a huge impact on me. And ever since then, I've always remembered that movie title. And that's actually a really big deal for me because I have trouble remembering certain titles, and sometimes I'll miss chunks of the content. Like, for example, like what just happened with The Gate. I don't remember it 100%, but I remember the title because it impacted me.
Yeah.
Same thing with the others. It left an impact on me, and it even led me to recommend it to you.
Yeah.
Which we did watch it.
We
What
watched
did
it
you
today.
think, Dan?
I thought this movie was awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah, and it's something that I was hinting at earlier. It has like a very timeless quality to it too, and the plot twist hits.
Yeah.
Because the things that I was thinking, I guess because I've seen many movies and movies from this era, I was like, maybe is this what? Are they gonna do this? Then the way they did something, it was just, it wasn't exactly what I was thinking. It just kind of confirmed one thing I was thinking, and it's so well tied together.
So well executed.
I feel like we shouldn't spoil it, right?
We shouldn't spoil it because we want the listeners to go watch it.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely.
I definitely think that people should go check this out.
100%.
I also think that almost saying that there is a twist in it is kind of a spoiler. So if you don't want to know anything, skip to the next segment of the podcast, I guess.
There'll be a timestamp on screen now.
All right, that's your responsibility. You
All right, fine. You can chill with your dings, and I'm going to have the timestamp.
But yeah, no, I thought it was well performed, well enough performed, because a lot of it is in the setup. It is very much like a gothic Victorian almost. Feeling good. Oh.
Someone's mad.
Yeah, somebody's slamming doors today.
Oh. They're out past their curfew, and now they're slamming doors, Daniel.
We gotta go spank them.
All right, well...
I gotta go put them on my knee and teach them a lesson. I gotta get a wooden spoon.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna use the wooden spoon.
I'm gonna get a cuillère de pao, and I'm gonna chase them around the house. Yeah. And I'm just gonna start throwing the wooden spoon. You've been a bad boy today. And they're gonna go, no, please, I've been a good boy. And I'm like, no, you haven't. And I go to your room, no Game Boy. Look at that. See? Slamming the door.
They went to
again.
their room, though. At least they listened.
Yeah, they went to the room. No Game Boy. They have to go to bed. No books either.
No Game Boy. No Game Boy Color. No comics. No graphic novels. No Harry Potter.
You can only...
I'm taking away your Sorcerer's Stone, Daniel.
No! You can only read biographies of presidents. We have a whole shelf of biographies of presidents. That's all you can read. Start with Jimmy Carter.
No, they have to start from the beginning. George Washington.
Start from the beginning. No, that's too cool. They gotta start with a lame one.
What was the one that was so big he fit in a tub?
A Taft?
That one, Taft.
No, but you see, that one has a fun fact. You gotta find a president people don't even know the name of.
Oh, man. I can't think of any. I don't know them.
Exactly. I want a book report on the worst president. Read all the books. Better not be Andrew Jackson.
No, Old Hickory is my favorite.
It's your favorite? Old Jackass?
It's specifically for that reason. I love that name. It's so good. Andrew Knoxville.
Andrew Knoxville. Ah, that's where it comes from.
Yes, indeed. That's exactly why it is what it is. So The Others, Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, I thought it was a great movie.
Oh, yeah.
I would recommend it. It is a haunting movie.
Oh, yeah. There's suspense. I believe it is PG-13.
Yeah, almost definitely.
This is definitely like a good introductory to deeper level ways of thinking of suspense mixed with paranormal, mixed with psychological horror.
Yeah. It's almost like you could show this to a child. Like, it could be PG.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. I saw it as a child.
Like, I think if someone's like old enough to see like Indiana Jones or something,
definitely.
they're already
even Star Wars, yeah.
Yeah, more than old enough to watch this. I don't know why I've been thinking about Indiana Jones a lot lately.
Oh yeah?
I don't know. He's just a handsome, muscle-bound man with a little hat, but then he gets punched in the face and gets a bloody nose. And I'm like, oh, he's just like me. And then he's a little nerd, has little nerd glasses, but then he's handsome. So it's like, he's a hero, you know?
Clark Kent? A little bit of Clark Kent in there.
I don't know if he's Clark Kent because even...
A little bit of Lone Ranger and Clark Kent.
Yeah.
The love child.
Definitely a little bit more Lone Ranger. Because even when he is the nerdy professor, he still has girls like fawning over him in class.
Yeah.
And it's just like, There's a version of this where he has an inappropriate relationship with one of those students probably.
Oh, great.
I mean, that hasn't been in any of the movies, but
yeah.
There actually was a script for an Indiana Jones movie that was probably going to be racist called Indiana Jones and the Monkey King.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
It never got made, but it was going to be directed by Chris Columbus, who did Gremlins, Home Alone, the Harry Potter movies, which we were just talking about, we just made a joke about. And elements from that script have been used in The Last Crusade and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But that movie was never made. And in that script, he has an inappropriate relationship with one of his students. And a running joke in the movie is that he is going to be put on trial for child molestation. As if that's like a funny thing. Wow. Yeah. So good thing that movie never got made. Unfortunately, Temple of Doom still got made, but we won't talk about that.
Oh, no.
That's a discussion for a different podcast.
Yeah, we're going to tack that on to the Batman and Evil Dead episode.
Yeah, we'll have an episode where we talk about specifically Batman vs. Superman, Evil Dead, and Temple of Doom. There's not much to talk about in Temple of Doom.
I think there'll probably be like a Danny Rant episode where I'm just going to like play fun tunes in the back while you do your thing.
I mean, everyone, if you've seen Temple of Doom, you know it's just racist. And like Indiana Jones isn't like a cool anymore in that one. He's kind of like a dick and a criminal.
That's not
it's
fun.
Like, well, he was a hero in the last one. But
disappointing.
I will say the stuff with Short Round and the minecart scene at the end of Temple of Doom is both 10 out of 10. Everything else just so happens to be like offensively racist. So that's the one thing. But do you have any other thoughts that you want to talk about the others, Milmore?
Any other thoughts may spoil for the listeners.
Right.
So I think
just leave them off with a go check it out.
We should leave them off with a go check it out, and please let us know what you thought.
Let us know what you thought. Just tell us what you think.
100%.
Just tell us what you think.
100%.
Tell me what you think.
Tell
Winter what you think.
Communicate.
Tell both of us what you think.
Talk to your podcast parents.
Talk to your podcast parents. Don't leave us in the dark. Yes. Don't go off to college and never contact us again. Come on.
Come on. What's that about?
You turn 18, then you go away forever.
We raised you better than that.
You're a podcast baby. You are a podcast. You will always be my podcast baby.
And if there's more than one listener at a time, you are podcast children.
Podcast babies.
Podcast babies too.
They'll always be podcast babies to me.
To you?
Yeah.
To me too.
No matter how old they get, they're always my babies.
And definitely, we'll end up posting like a story asking you guys if you guys want to check it out. Yeah. Definitely get some interaction in there.
Get some interaction.
Send us a DM. How many out of 5 stars would you give it?
Yeah.
Why and why not?
Post your reviews and
maybe
tag
we'll
us.
Debate you on it. You know what? We should start a debate in our comment section.
Maybe.
I think
we'll
so.
start a debate.
I think that.
Should we start a debate?
Yeah.
Should we escalate the debates immediately? Get personal with people?
Exactly.
Like
that's how debates go.
I disagree with you, so I hate every element of you as a person.
I disagree with you because your hair is stupid.
Yeah, and your nose is dumb. Your nose is dumb.
But yeah, if you're listening to this right now, that means that there is a post on Instagram announcing this episode. So you should go start debates in the comment section.
Yeah, and if you're watching this on YouTube, just comment down below.
Go ahead. Down below.
Just comment down below.
Good. Even if you want to say hi. Even if you don't feel like watching Nicole Kidman, because I know she makes too many appearances in AMC now.
Not
do
enough,
your thing.
in my opinion.
Not enough?
Not enough.
Right.
I think halfway through the movie, there should be another commercial break.
There should be like an intermission Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, where she like steps in the puddle.
Different dress.
And she's like, we make movies better. And I'm just like, Nicole, what are you doing there? You
because here, they are.
Because here, they are. Our heroes seem larger than life.
What? Heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
That's so good. But with all this talk about debates and insulting people, I think that brings us to one of our nicer segments.
Mm-hmm.
That's the compliment of the day.
That's the compliment of the day.
Yeah, and for my compliment of the day,
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that you've done a really, really great job being creative and hardworking, coming up with a lot of things and ideas to elevate this podcast just between the first episode and the second episode. It wouldn't be where it is right now without you, and I think it's a lot better where it is right now because of how much hard work you've put in.
Aw, thanks, Danny.
Yeah, of course.
Well, my dear,
Yeah.
my compliment of the day is actually very similar.
Oh, yeah?
Because I know that, like, with my attention span and, like, some of my ideas, like, experimenting with what works and what doesn't work in between our, like, busy schedules and stuff, regardless of that, you've been very attentive and you've been very, like, available, and you've been making the time to also, like, communicate with me on stuff, especially having to do with, like, questions. And you're always very patient with me, so I really appreciate that. You're, like, the coolest teacher, like, ever.
I just love working on a cool-ass project with a cool-ass lady.
Oh,
Yeah.
just nice.
That's you.
But yeah, listener, now that you're throwing up, go ahead.
Pass along the love.
Pass it along.
Listen, compliment somebody else just for fun.
Yeah, just for fun.
Just for fun.
Walking down the street, going to work.
Just give someone a smile.
Give someone something.
Tell someone their
Well,
hair is
something.
pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Tell someone that they look fly as fuck that day.
Tell someone that they really love their nerdy anime shirt.
Yeah.
Or they're like, their tattoos are like super dope. Or like their beard is just so on point.
Oh, yeah?
Or like their eyebrows are so powerful.
That's a one way to put it.
But yeah, listener, go ahead.
Yeah,
Pass it on. Share the love.
And drink some water.
Drink some
Tell someone to
water.
drink some water, too. Just drink some water.
Come on now. If you haven't done it by now, what you doing?
What do you do? You're thirsty.
What are you doing? You're
thirsty.
thirsty. You're thirsty, biatch. Come
You're
on
just
now.
being thirsty.
Come on now.
And right before we head off and end this episode,
Mm-hmm.
we have one little segment we like to send off.
Oh my gosh, we do?
What's this segment, Winter?
Oh my god, it's Winter's Bebop Boobops.
Winter's Bebop Boobops. What's the
The
Winter's
jams
Bebop
and
Boobops?
such. This episode's Bebop Boobop, in honor of my good friend Rob and his
Yeah.
band, the Bullet Brigade. Bullet Brigade. Apologies, Rob. I have a typo negative song just for you.
What
And
song is it?
it's Christian Woman in reference to Nicole Kidman and the others.
That's good. You can follow us on all the social medias. I'm on Instagram at Dan Reguino and at DCR Films. Also on YouTube at Danny Reguino. Winter.
I have too many to count. They're in the description.
Oh yeah, all of our links are down below, but there's
Check out that description while you're at it. Give it a read.
including Winter has a very lovely store where she sells her art on all sorts of different things, as prints and t-shirts and buttons and stickers.
Maybe with a drawing that was dedicated to my podcast partner and parent in crime and whatnot. A very groovy drawing that is on a shirt. So if you want a very groovy shirt, I got stickers. I got temporary tattoos too.
And they're all
You can be
very, very
groovy
awesome.
just like Danny.
Yeah, that's Winter's Whimsies.
Winter's Whimsies on Zazzle.
Yeah, it's all linked down below if you want to check it out.
Check it out, check it out.
Subscribe to us on YouTube, on Spotify.
Like, comment, subscribe,
Anchor.
hit the bell.
Hit the bell.
Give me a ding, Daniel.
Just hit the bell.
Give me a ding. There you go.
I might not edit in ding there. Who knows?
You know what? I think our ding is powerful enough.
That ding, that just going ding is powerful enough.
Ding.
Ding.
Yeah, perfect.
Ding. Dong?
No.
No,
Ding.
that's weird. That's inappropriate.
Yeah.
This is a ding type
What
of
has
situation.
gone into you this episode?
I don't know.
Oh man.
Too much Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo got back on nose. Who knows?
Scooby-Doo. Love the echo. Shall we end it off with a nice little bow?
What was the thing we say at the end of every episode?
Well, listeners, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Have a beautiful day.